tank over here. It's got many different names, pressure tank, batch tank. It's made out of very heavy iron with an epoxy lining. It's very, very durable. In fact, it's very, very heavy. So I wouldn't suggest using this one where you need a portable system. You can use liquid or dry fertilizer in this. You can take a soluble fertilizer, and that's the key. You don't want to use triple 15 or anything like that. You want to make sure it's a soluble product. Now, there are some greenhouse grade products such as triple 20 that you can use through this. And the important thing is that you understand how it functions, and that's what I'd like to explain a little bit about. You build a manifold, and I'm not sure if you can all see this, but essentially you have two hose bibs with a ball valve or gate valve in between. And as you run your irrigation, you divert a portion of the water through this little tank. And many, many years ago, when we first started selling these, I asked some of the growers, how do you determine when all the fertilizer's out? And they said, oh, we know. We've got a pressure gauge on each side. And I said, what does that tell you? And another grower said, well, I taste it from time to time when we turn it off. And another fella puts dye in it and all these different things. And I said, you know what? Maybe I ought to call the people that make these to get an idea how they work. That's kind of a novel approach, but it worked. And found out that really, no matter what the size of the tank is, nor what it's made out of, that there's a very simple formula. And that formula is 6 times the capacity of the tank. 6 times the capacity of the tank. This one, I think, is a 5-gallon, Gary, and I think we've got them in many different sizes, but the formula is the same. So then I'd say, okay, here it is, this is what you do, and they say, fine, you don't need to say anymore. And I kind of went, well, how do you know after you've passed the proper amount of water through this? Well, I've got a feeling. I know how much we're putting out there, and I know the sprinklers and this and that. And I said, we've got to have another system to figure that out, and that's the flow meter. So if you looked at this tank, if you took the lid off, you'd find the inlet side has a pipe that goes almost all the way down to the bottom. This is for hydraulic agitation. So if you put dry product in there, the water comes rushing in, swirls around, mixes, and then the product flows out the top and out into your irrigation system. And many people don't understand the idea of pressure differential, but you actually have a higher inlet pressure and a lower outlet. And that's hard to understand, but that's how it works. Another thing that's very interesting is I operate these tanks either with the inlet and the outlet completely open or closed, nothing in between. There's a valve in between, and that's the valve that I use to adjust the flow meter. Because it's very important to understand, if you've got to pass a certain amount of water through this tank, you have to set your flow meter to something that is appropriate for your irrigation cycle. The other thing that's very important is you don't want to start this at the beginning of a 15 or 20 hour cycle. You want to start this probably when you've been 2/3 into it, and you want to time it so you have at least a couple of hours of clear water going through this thing to flush out your lines. So that's very, very important. The other thing is, I think it's very important for growers to understand it can take a very long time for this water to reach your target. Now, this is very, very close, so it's not a problem. But if we have to push it, you know, half a mile over this hill, it could take half an hour to get there. And so you want to be able to understand that, and that means that you need to be at the end of the line, and you need to be there with an EC meter to be able to measure the concentration and see when this arrives, and also when it's over. So you can test out some of these theories, which don't work by the way.